Whether you're buying your first domain name or you're a regular domain investor, you need the right tools for the job. That's why you need domain tools. They can help you research the history of a domain, including who owned it and what used to be on the site. They can notify you when a domain is expiring, and they can even alert you when competitors are buying domains. DomainTools.com needs to be in your toolbox like it is in mine. Sign up for your free account on DomainTools.com today. If you're a domain name investor, don't you have unique legal needs that require technical know-how and industry experience? That's why you need David Westlow of Wiley Rein. If you watched his interview on my show, you know he can clearly explain issues and help you with buy-sell agreements, website content issues, UDRP actions, or even website terms and conditions. David Westlow is the lawyer you call for internet legal issues. See for yourself at newmediaip.com. Managing multiple domain name marketplace and auction site accounts is a pain. We all know it. Inevitably, you forget to sign into one, you lose a great domain. Now imagine using a single, simple-to-use, comprehensive control panel to manage all of your accounts. That's Protrata. With just a few clicks, you can analyze, set filters, automate your bidding, and sell your domains across all major marketplaces, including Namejet, GoDaddy, and Snapdames. You can build out websites using their customized Google-friendly templates. They also just launched a fresh new look and provide some great resources like a personal assistant named Alfred and video tutorials with tips and tricks. I've been beta testing their iPhone app, and it is slick. Get your free 14-day trial now at Protrata.com. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a successful domain name entrepreneur directly from the experts. The internet can be a scary place. Every day, I'm scared that my mom is going to click on one of those spam emails that she receives. She's got a soft heart and I'm sure she wants to help out the Nigerian prince's father that's locked up in prison. What's a few $1,000s to free a king when she'll get it back in tenfold a few days later, right? But when you need to process online transactions, like a buy or sale of a domain name, and you want it to be safe and secure, especially when it crosses international country lines, you need a legal service called Escrow. Joining us to tell us more about how Escrow can be used in both straightforward and not so straightforward ways is Brandon Abbey. Brandon is the president of Escrow.com, an online escrow service that reduces the risk of fraud in many types of transactions, including domain names, collectibles, electronics, and automobiles. Escrow.com has been named DomainNameWire.com's top domain escrow service for at least the past 4 years in a row, that according to my research. And as of yesterday, they hit $1 billion in transactions. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Pleasure to be here.
I want to start off by saying, Brandon, that there are many domain name escrow companies out there. You're aware of them. You know, Cedo, Escrow DNS, Moniker.com, Afternic, Mini Escrow, tons of them. There's probably like more that I couldn't even find. But I want to point out to the audience that when I've sent out requests for information in the past so that I could publish resources on Domain Sherpa listing escrow companies, their rates, things like that, it was always Escrow.com that came back with comprehensive and precise answers on time. And so I just want to start out the show by saying thank you to you and your team for doing that, Brandon.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
All right, let's start with some basics, Brandon. Get people's minds set around what we're going to talk about for this show, and then we'll move into some more complex domain name escrow questions. Let's start with this. What is escrow in layman's terms?
In layman's terms, escrow is a neutral third party holding funds on behalf of a buyer and seller while they complete a transaction.
Okay, that sounds simple enough.
It's pretty simple.
So like when I used to fight with my sister all the time and I said, I'll give you this, but if you give me that, and then we try and grab something out of each other's hands before the other one could give it. mom would step in and say, okay, give them both to me. And then she would act as that intermediary third party, get both the items before she hands them to the other party.
Yes, your mom was the escrow agent.
She's an escrow agent also. All right. So how does escrow then apply to domain names in the domain name industry?
Well, in the domain space, we hold the funds on behalf of the buyer. Do you want me to just walk you through a transaction, how it...
Yeah, that sounds great.
Either party can start a transaction on the system. Once both parties have agreed to the terms of the transaction, and that the terms are basically the amount, the domain name, whether or not there's any content involved. There's an inspection period, which is a drop-down menu that you can fill in. Usually with the domains, it's 1 to 2 days. And when both parties agree, we ask the buyer to fund the escrow. When that's funded, the seller is prompted to transfer the domain to the buyer. Then the buyer has that inspection period to make sure he has it. Once he has control of the domain, then he accepts it, and the seller's paid. So it's a pretty simple process, explaining it, but on the back end, there are a lot of things that go on.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, and so we talked about it from my perspective. When I wanted something for my sister, the escrow is important because then the interests of both the buyers and the sellers are protected at all times.
Yes, we're absolutely a neutral third party in the transaction.
Okay, great. And so I actually want to dig into some of the details around that transaction, how that transaction happens, because I know there are a lot of moving parts on the back end, that behind the scenes that you don't really want the customers to see, but for them to understand it a little bit better is going to give them more confidence in the process. And we're going to find out how that all works in detail, and how, and even how you might be able to do an escrow and spread it out over years, so that your expenses of a startup match your income. But first, I want to take a step back, Brandon. From what I can tell from my research, Escrow.com was founded in 1999, and you became president in about 2004. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. How did you first come to know about Escrow.com and this whole idea of online escrow, which I think Escrow.com was one of the pioneers of?
Escrow.com was one of the pioneers. There were 2 other companies that started about the same time, iEscrow and Trade Enable. Both of those companies went away in escrow. Escrow kind of became the leader, or took over the lead position in that, primarily when we signed the contract with eBay. And that's been a good relationship for us.
Yeah.
When I first found out about escrow, it was in 2002, when I happened to be the vice president of sales for a software company, doing a deal with Fidelity National Financial. And Fidelity was the parent company of Escrow.com. And when the transaction finally took place, Escrow.com became part of the software company that I was working for. And Fidelity got a site-wide license to the software that we were providing.
Interesting. All right. So you sort of came around to know about Escrow.com because of the software company you were working at. And what did you think about it when you went through the process? There's a lot of escrow agents out there. You buy a house, you go through an escrow agent and a title company, and they, handle that sort of transaction as well. Mm-hmm. What was unique about it that you liked when you first discovered that Escrow.com was being used?
Well, it had nothing to do with real estate, for one. And we still do not do real estate. We're licensed as an internet escrow company for personal property. So, not to say we couldn't do real estate, but it would require getting an additional license that is not what we consider our core competency. So, we're going to stay in the space we're in. But the software company took it over and eventually got in a position where they were going to be acquired by Computer Associates. And Computer Associates didn't want the escrow component to go with them, and it was purchased by an investment group here in Orange County that I was familiar with, and they asked me to come in and take over the company at that time in 2004.
Great. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Brandon Abbey, because everybody in the domain name space wants to know what kind of domain names Brandon has. So tell us, how many domain names do you own, Brandon?
I own BrandonAbbey.com.
That's a good one.
I am not a domainer, and quite honestly, I think if I was a domainer, it would be a severe conflict of interest just because of the business we do in the community. And I take that stance with all my employees as well.
All right, but you do have your name, Brandon Abbey.
I do, yes.
All right, sounds good. And when you bought Brandon Abbey, did you hand register it, or did you go through Escrow.com?
I hand registered it through GoDaddy. Actually, Andy Hill did it for me.
Great. All right. So all my other questions around domain names become moot. It's really disappointing, Brandon. You know, you're going to have to rethink your policy at Escrow.com. I'm just joking. It's a great policy that keeps everything clear from you know, your personal business from the business that you're in, and there are no conflict of interest, and I am a firm believer in that. All right, so let me ask you this. Have you bought anything else through Escrow.com? Have you bought a nice Lamborghini or an old Model T or any other collectibles that you used Escrow.com for?
Sure. I have bought a car through Escrow.com.
Did you? Was it a classic car or a car that you drive around every day?
It's a BMW 840 97.
Nice.
It's going to be up for sale soon.
And when you sell it, then you can go through Escrow.com again.
Exactly, and I'll pick up the fee.
All right. So do a lot of employees use Escrow.com on a regular basis to buy things? You know, you're all online. You probably see a lot of transactions. You're probably like myself. I do almost all of my shopping online nowadays. Is it pretty commonplace to see employees processing transactions through your service?
In some cases, I use it for our services contracts. For you know, we're in the process of putting in a new phone system, so we'll use it for that. We've had some development work done. We use it for that.
Interesting. Oh, so development work I can understand, where, you know, you want this much software to be done, and then you set up a schedule that says when you meet these requirements, at this point I'll release this much of the escrow, and at this point I'll release this much of the escrow, and when you give me the completed project, I'll release the rest of the escrow. Something like that?
It's exactly like that. You set up the payment milestones based on performance, and once those are completed and accepted by the buyer, the seller's paid.
Okay. How does that work with a phone system?
Well, the phone system is, you have the physical phone system, right? And all the hardware that goes along with it, so that payment will be made upon delivery, and then completion of the installation is what triggers the second payment in that transaction.
All right. Boy, you're going to make a killing as soon as you figure out how to escrow my monthly payments to Comcast. So they guarantee me uptime service, and they, you know, never seem to deliver it. I should knock on wood because I'm going to lose my internet during this interview, most likely. And I should agree to release the payment every month if my service is 100% uptime or 99%. I would even take 95% uptime for my cable and everything. So there's an idea for you. I'm not even going to charge you for it, Brandon. All right. So I want to find out how the parent company of Escrow.com, you know, I know Escrow.com is its own legal entity now, but it didn't used to be. It used to be a service. And I think during our pre-interview call, we talked about EC Services Corporation being the parent company. How did EC Services Corporation actually come to own the Escrow.com domain name?